to talk about when, that you're not going to be rescued and you have to just hold on and I think about some of this could be empathy. I think about my client who is so, so badly abused. Both parents should be locked up. And if her parents were locked up, you know, what would that mean for her? Well, I mean, I will say this. I have said it many times. Children, babies, do not ask to be born. We do not ask to be born. Sometimes we are born into a hell. Alright, so I would say any baby born during these times, even with a good parent or parents, is born into a hell. But I am talking about, I mean, yeah. So I'm not going to say people do the best they can. I'm not in the mood to say that right now. What I'm going to say is that, I'm sitting here working on some language, feeling despair, thinking that could be empathy. But I also think about, being gifted. So, gifted, yeah, gifted with. Gifted with a box of peaches. How nice. Well, yeah. So, are there stories in this box? Probably. Do I know anything at all about any of that? Well, that farm, I think, might have been started in the 1940s. I wonder what was there before the farm. It is near Albany, Georgia. Some people might say Albany, Uh, and At first I thought about Jimmy Carter. I think was he from Americus? Because there is a farm not far from Americus that is, I'm not going to say utopian, but perhaps unusual. And yeah, well, in a good way. All right. What do I know about agriculture? Well, I know that when I was doing temp work at a factory, was it a factory? I was doing temp work. We were delinting medical washcloths, and the women I was working with, at least some of the women had been working at a farm in Henderson County, North Carolina, being paid $2 an hour. That was in 1991, and that was not minimum wage. And we were being paid more than minimum wage, $2 an hour. And what do I know? What do I know about agriculture beyond that? I think that we're not supposed to know some things. I think we're actively prevented from knowing some things, perhaps. And I think about in Hendersonville as a high school student, being aware of migrant workers coming through and living in basically sheds. I could say barracks, sheds, basically living in sheds. And and what has happened to people now? Well, people have been, I am sure this certainly includes people working in agriculture have been abducted, put in concentration camps, deported. How many people have died? Well, we could talk about conditions among migrant agricultural workers, and I am not saying that that's what this is because I don't know. When I looked at their website, there were women sorting almonds in what looked like factory uniforms. All right, so I don't know. I don't know. What I know is that that is a proxy for love from the woman that gave birth to my body. I also, I was thinking recently, Papa called me a Georgia peach. I was box breathing, and I'm like, he said, He called me a Georgia peach. Did he say I was his Georgia peach? He called me a Georgia peach. Did he ever say I was a Southern belle? Did he say I was going to look like a Southern belle? Was there ever any use of that word? There might have been, joking around. All right, so that box and what is in it, that is a proxy for love. And yeah. What can I say beyond that? I could start talking again about agricultural labor, and when I was reading the book about child labor, I was wondering, about my grandfather's family and how far back is it where people were doing migrant agricultural labor, because I would think there probably was some of that. I would certainly think agricultural labor before people were working on the railroad is just cut off. I know the name, the first and last name of his father, and if his father, not his father, yeah, his father. All right, so my grandfather's father, I know his whole name. His parents, my grandfather's grandparents, my grandfather's grandparents, it just cuts off with his grandfather. And I've got the first name, the last name, and a middle initial, and his grandmother's name. And she, I mentioned, died at Baltimore Block when it was a slum. And his grandfather died the year that it started being regentrified again. All right, so was he living there? I mean, where else would he live? And I've talked about that before. I think that's a good reminder about gentrification and what it does to people living in poverty. All right, gentrification. All right, so I think about people thinking they know better than people who are living in poverty. And I mean, I think about a research article that I cited for a paper that I wrote when I was in graduate school about community-based participatory research, and it was actually in Atlanta, and people saying, well, we have these roles and people need us, and then when you give us money and then you take it away, well, yeah, so it would be nice if academia were completely sensitive to what academia does sometimes. If people are going to help or pretend to help than to sustain the help. All right. So is that what institutions do? I mean, all right. So anyway, yeah, proxy for love. And am I complaining about it? I am making an observation. I am commenting on the very high level of stress there is, surviving the paucity of love. How about that? Withholding of love, a withholding of real basic things. All right, yeah. So, a person might say that they're doing the best they can, and it's like, don't pretend. Just don't. You know what you're doing. Don't pretend. But yeah. So, well, just thought I would, share that, and thinking about when no one is going to rescue us. What do? I mean, we just keep on. We just keep the fuck on. And sometimes sometimes we've helped people because we had the life experience that it took to know how bad some things can be. And that's just kind of where is is an older man who taught in educational counseling or counseling education, and that I interacted with over a decade ago, despite his real high level of formal education, where people are at, that's, I used to not say that because we were, punished verbally at the very least for, not making real big efforts with our grammar. How about that? You structure your thinking, you structure your words, you try to make sure you're saying things. And has it made any motherfucking difference in my life? I mean, it's probably added some stress. because a person can look at me and see that, yeah, they either like me or they don't, I guess. When no one is going to rescue you, you just hold the fuck on. If you have physical things that happen, well, I can think of people who have experienced that and who have survived it. The body can heal as long as we're still alive. I mean, if someone is extremely harmed in an accident, I mean, you know, I mean, I don't want, I'm not trying to, I want to be careful to not be like, but you, there's plenty of healing that can occur in the human body, all right, and animals too, all right. Is it true for plants? Plants regenerating? Well, anyway, all right, when no one is going to rescue you, you have to hold on. I think, again, about my client and the abuse she endures on, I mean, a never ending basis, including bruises on her body from her father, a 26-year-old adult. Yeah, and could that be some of that? It could be. It could be. But that's really, I mean, that is my job as someone there for people, to be there. So yeah, when no one is going to rescue you, hold the fuck on. Somebody sends you delicious food, as a gesture of whatever they're gesturing. It could just be that. Well, I mean, I don't know what to say about that. Some people never grow up, no matter how old they get. And yeah, war torn. Yeah, I think that's my heart. War torn. It ain't my fucking war. It is war that has been made on my ass. And yeah, I ain't fucking giving up my life. And I'm calling out bullshit where I see it. And yeah, delicious. I don't fucking use that word.